All right, welcome to Touchdown Talks. I'm Spencer Taylor. This is going to be my instant reaction to Jets Texans Halloween Thursday night football game. Again, Thursday night football games, you know my opinion of them. Pretty much a very common opinion. Very weird games usually, and this one didn't disappoint in that aspect. Definitely a Thursday night game for sure. It was a close one, thankfully, but definitely a uglier type of game for New York fans. They get a good win. New York fans, I feel like, deserve it. Have had a tough stretch the last few years, certainly the last decade, really. Plenty of disappointment and hardship. And certainly for New York football fans with the Jets and Giants, you haven't had a whole lot to cheer for over the last few years. And certainly tonight, you got a little bit of a change up there. You got a good Jets win against a good Houston Texans team. Got them in a perfect situation to win against them. You ended up facing a Texans team that is very injured on offense, very depleted on that side of the ball. So that certainly, that and some other aspects of this game certainly fell the way of the Jets, but that doesn't really matter. In the end, a win is a win. So for the Jets to get the win tonight, certainly a very big one for them. I actually had preseason, both in my schedule release predictions and my at the beginning of the season predictions. I actually did have in both of those, I had the Jets winning tonight. Now, in my picks that I did a day or two ago, personally, that I actually had the Texans winning. But that's also part of why I like doing those picks, season predictions before the season starts and at the schedule release, because I've found, especially over doing this the last 2 years, I've found that it definitely is true that honestly, if you really try to study into the NFL schedule before a season comes out, honestly, half the time the schedule in a way is almost more predictable if you're predicting it before the season even starts, without any of the any recent games affecting your view of each team. If you're just looking at it from an outside lens, looking farther into the future at the season as a whole, if you really break down the schedule, you can sometimes in ways more accurately predict games than you can hours before a game starts. Because my overall predictions record so far this season, comparing my two different sets of predictions from schedule release and season start, comparing those records to my record of just picking week to week, they're all pretty close. They're all within a few games, but you would think that predictions I made all the way back in May wouldn't be that good, but surprisingly they're right there neck and neck, and some weeks actually way better than my weekly predictions. But yeah, so for the Jets to win this, I was a bit surprised that they won, but as I said, it was a perfect storm. Certainly the sports books were on to this. They had the Jets favored all this week. It was certainly a line that had a lot of us scratching our heads, including myself. Unfortunately, might have fallen for it a little bit. Did take the Texans. I knew I shouldn't have. I keep telling myself every week, don't touch Thursday night football games. Just don't bet them at all. I keep telling myself that every week, and then quite a few weeks I've fallen into the trap of giving in. It's hard with these standalone games. It's fun to, you want to watch them. You want to hope that these standalone games are fun, and so certainly for me, sometimes throwing in a tiny little bet here and there, sometimes that adds a little bit of fun, more stakes to it. But Thursday night games, I need to stay away from them. Thursday night games are just wild. And with this one, I don't want to go too much longer into this one. Again, it was pretty ugly slog, certainly for the first half. Only had one touchdown in the first half, that coming from the Texans. That was the only score of the first half. They got the first touchdown. But then going into the second half, and certainly going further along into the fourth quarter, the Jets really took over the game. Texans just really couldn't get too much of anything going. Again, they got the one touchdown, and then after that, the Texans had just two field goals. And another thing that in the end didn't necessarily make a difference in the score. I mean, if you were to put those points back on, they still would have lost. But the Texans did have two field goals that were missed by their kicker, which was pretty uncharacteristic for him in Fairbairn. He's coming into tonight, he had only missed two field goals on the season. Tonight he missed two, including one that was from pretty much chip shot range in the NFL. I think it was like a 24-yard field goal, something like that, and he doinked it off the goalpost. So, it always blows my mind how often it seems that kickers are hitting goalposts. I know that statistically it probably isn't actually happening that much, but it certainly seems sometimes like it's happening a lot, and it's mind-boggling to me that you look at goalposts and all the space that's in between them, all the space outside of it, and it just seems like that the ball just magnetizes to the goalpost sometimes. And again, some of that perception may just be me, Bears fan, ever since the double doink. I've become more aware of any time a doink happens, so maybe that's part of why I think it happens way too much. But it's just kind of weird. For the Texans, they did have two missed field goals. So certainly, I'm sure Texans fans are saying, "Oh, well, if only we missed those two field goals." And I do agree. That very well could have ended up changing the game. If you add those two field goals plus 6 points, you still, where the score ended up at 21-13 as it was, adding 6 points, you still lose 21-19. So those missed field goals alone wouldn't do it for you. Now, of course, if you had made those two field goals, on that final drive, that last drive or two that the Texans had in the fourth quarter, the closer score certainly changes things. The Texans maybe don't feel a need to go quite as aggressive on offense and throw so many deep passes like they tried to do late in the game. Maybe they play a little bit more smart and, just drive up the field to set up another field goal in the end. So maybe that could have changed the outcome of the game for the Texans. But, really, again, the Jets won at home. And I think Jets fans and New York fans, I think they deserve it tonight. I don't think the New York Jets are out of it. They talked about it on the broadcast that Aaron Rodgers has talked about, the mathematical side. Obviously, they're not mathematically eliminated, but Rodgers had talked about before this game that he truly believes the Jets have a real chance to still make the playoffs. And, I kind of scoffed at that when I heard that on the broadcast. And if you've watched my videos at all this season, I haven't been a believer in the Jets. Even before the season, I'm still not a believer in the Jets necessarily. I think they're a 8-9 win team most likely. 9 wins at like the max at this point. But the thing is, to be fair to what Aaron Rodgers is saying, that honestly at this point for the AFC is pretty realistic for making the playoffs. I mean, honestly, the way things are shaping up, I wouldn't even be totally surprised if we see an AFC team with a record of 8-9 make it in. That is honestly a legitimate possibility at this point for the AFC. Now, if you were in the NFC, that would not be possible at all from what I'm predicting, but the AFC, from my predictions and many others as well, it seems very likely that the AFC wildcard picture is going to have at least one or two teams that only have 9 wins. Again, maybe even 8, if you ask me. Looking at the Jets season coming up, they've got not the Commanders. That's the Giants who play them this week. But so for coming up for the Jets, they've got, first of all, they've got extra rest now, being they played on Thursday. Their next game isn't going to be all the way until November 10th, and they'll be in Arizona against the Cardinals. So you'll have the Cardinals, then you're at home against the Colts, Then the Jets get their bye week, which honestly I think is a pretty good week to have their bye in week 12. That's a pretty good bye to have it, later in the season, not the latest possible, but later in the season to where you don't waste that bye early on. You get it later, so you get through most of the season. You get your break. You get to rest players, get players back from injury, and then you're ready to go for the final stretch for that final month and a half of games to really try to get into the playoffs. So I think that bye works out pretty well for the Jets. And then off of their bye week, they play at home against the Seahawks. So that's that'll be a one that their opponent has to come all the way across country for. Then they're at Miami, at Jacksonville. So 2 games in a row in Florida. You're not in, you're fortunate there in the sense that you're not going to have to deal with the early season Florida heat down there in Miami and Jacksonville. So, the weather for going down there will be pretty nice. You won't have to worry too much about that. Then you're at home against the Rams, on the road against Buffalo, and then finish the season at home against the Dolphins a second time. So, I mean, really looking at that schedule right now, the way things are shaping up, which again, as I just said a few minutes ago, sometimes looking at things during the season, sometimes it's easier to get deceived when trying to make predictions, but, it does, looking at their schedule, even as a doubter of the Jets this season, I do think it is very possible that the Jets do make it into the playoffs as a wild card team, a low wild card team. Just running through those games right now. Now, before the season, my start of season predictions, I had them only only winning 2 more games from this point, which would end them at, that would have them ending at 5-12. I don't think they're going to go that low. They've already won a couple games so far this season. For this spreadsheet of predictions, they've won a couple games that I hadn't expected them to. This is one that I had expected them to win before the season started. But, just looking at some of those games, the Cardinals. Sure, the Cardinals are a good team. On a neutral field, everything equaled out, that kind of stuff. I would probably pick the Cardinals to win that game. However, the Cardinals are kind of hard to pick. They're kind of up and down. Kyler Murray's one of those quarterbacks that's really fun to watch. They've got other fun parts, especially on offense. But, sometimes week to week they can be a little bit inconsistent. One week they're really good, look amazing against one team, and then the next week the Cardinals don't look that great. So, and the thing with the Cardinals is they play the Chicago Bears this week. And, I know you're saying, okay, Spencer, you're a Bears fan, come on. Don't act like that's going to be a big deal for the Cardinals. But hold on. Even if the Bears lose to the Cardinals, which I do think that the Bears, after being humiliated on Sunday, after that Hail Mary play, after being humiliated and all that, the Bears will be on the road in Arizona. But after being humiliated and after what happened there, all the noise that's been going on, I think the Bears are going to play with some anger. They're going to be trying to play tough here coming up against the Cardinals. And even if the Bears do lose, I still think you gotta understand this Bears defense. Again, they were part of the reason why they lost. Made a huge few mistakes on that final drive, as I talked about. But at the same time, though, it's still one of the best defenses in the league, a very tough defense. So for this Jets-Cardinals game coming up in about 10 days, the Jets are going to be coming off of 4 days extra rest than the Cardinals. So, even the fact that the Jets have to travel all the way to Arizona, that shouldn't matter too much. You've still got extra time to prepare and, get rested a bit. And then the Cardinals are going to be coming off of a game against the Chicago Bears with that tough defense that even if the Cardinals win it, you would expect that the Cardinals might be a little bit beat up, a little bit bruised from playing against a team like like the Bears. So, that could end up working out for the Jets. The Jets also, again, not only do they get this basically half a bye, they also are coming off a win they've been dying for at this point. They seem to be starting to click with the new addition of Devontae Adams. Rodgers now with Garrett Wilson with the huge amazing catch he had tonight. You've got Breece Hall, who played well in the backfield. You've got, they've even got weapons like Conklin at tight end that they didn't even use tonight. So the Jets have plenty to work with, and things seem to certainly tonight seemed to be meshing much better than they have really all season on offense. And that Jets defense, they do still have a good roster on defense. I still think the Jets defense has certainly still looked a little bit worse from when Robert Saleh was the coach, but certainly tonight they kept the game low scoring against the Texans. But again, the thing with the Texans, they came into this really beat up, really missing their top 3 receivers. So it was a perfect chance to get C.J. Stroud. Also, you were getting pressure on C.J. Stroud almost every play very quickly. So for the Jets, again, you got a good win tonight, I think, against the Cardinals in 10 days. That could be a good spot to get them. At home against the Colts, that one could be a tougher one. We just got to see. It's kind of hard to predict that one, being that Colts are now going to be starting Flacco. It's easy to, imagine the Colts looking a lot better now that they've got Flacco, with just how amazing Flacco's been this last couple of years. Late in his career, bouncing from place to place. He seems to be, playing really well for his age and things like that. So, maybe the game against the Colts is tough. But then you got your bye. You got the Seahawks. Certainly a team that can play others tough. But, the Seahawks have had some not so good games. And really, the Seahawks haven't won too many impressive games, honestly. So, the Seahawks, that should be a winnable one for the Jets, or certainly could be at home in New York. On the road against the Dolphins, we know how they've been struggling. That's still a few weeks away from now, so we'll have to see how the Dolphins look at that point. Certainly they're much better with Tua back, but even this past week they barely lost to the Cardinals. So that one's kind of tough, and it is a wild card or a division game, and really, you face the Dolphins twice, so, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins and Jets split the rivalry going forward this season. Jaguars, honestly, at this point, by the time you face the Jaguars, that'll be in December. Who knows if they've even still got Doug Peterson as their head coach. Certainly if they've lost a bunch of games between now and then, which seems kind of likely for the Jaguars, they might already be on an interim head coach at that point. And even if they aren't, the Jags just haven't had a good year this year, so that could be winnable. At home against the Rams, the way the Rams seem to be trending right now, in my opinion, I think that one will be a tough game against the Rams. And then, of course, on the road against Buffalo, that one could be another tough one as well. And obviously, I think we all can say pretty confidently Buffalo is going to win the division. If you just look at the standings for the AFC East, it's pretty crazy. The Bills are leading it far and away. You got at the top of the AFC East, Bills are at 6-2, and second place now is the Jets in that division at 3-6. So the division is definitely the Bills to win. But so that's why I say for the Jets, certainly they're not going to win the division. But with the way the AFC wildcard picture is shaping out, the AFC, basically every division, you got a pretty easy winner to pick. The AFC West, it's the Chiefs. We know they're going to win that one. AFC East, it's going to be the Bills. AFC North, that one's a little bit tougher, but it's most likely going to be the Ravens there. And then AFC South, it's most likely going to be one of either the Texans or the Colts. One of those two is going to win it. And then outside of that, your wild card teams are going to be a mix of anything from, The Bengals maybe if they keep things together. I mean, the Bengals, similarly to the Jets, they're going to have to string together a lot of wins to make it, or at least it feels like that. Bengals, maybe the Browns, of course the Steelers. That's another one. Steelers very much could be in the mix. They're at a pretty good record as it is right now. I mean, maybe the Steelers surprise us and win the division even. With the record they've got right now. I mean, they do sit atop the division. I don't expect that, but so yeah, really the whole AFC North, you got to watch out for them to be in the playoff picture. AFC East, I don't think anybody in the AFC East outside, again, Buffalo wins the division, and then Miami and the Jets, both of them are going to have to string together a good amount of wins to make it into that wild card picture, but certainly still possible for either team if they can do it. AFC South, again, you may end up having one of the Texans or Colts, and then AFC West, maybe the Chargers make it to being wild card worthy as far as the record goes, but certainly out of the AFC West, not too likely there. So for the Jets, I think it's very possible that if they win a few of those games, they very well could make it into the wild card picture, or at least be in the hunt and just barely miss it. Again, they're 3-6 right now, and as I said, I think 9-8 or 8-9 maybe, probably more likely 9-8. Again, 8-9 you probably miss. 9-8 you might barely get in. It's still very iffy there. There may end up being a lot of teams that end at 9-8 in the AFC, so that one might be one of those ones that's going to come down to some scary tiebreakers. But yeah, so for the Jets, you're at 3-6. So to get to 9-8, you would have to win six more. You would have to win six more games. So I mean, let's say you win against the Cardinals. You lose against the Colts, win against the Seahawks. You get one of the wins against the Dolphins, win against the Jags. That's still only 4. That gets you to 7 wins there. Maybe you win both games against the Dolphins, or you pull off an upset against Buffalo. It's possible, but again, I still think it's very much an outside chance for the Jets to make the playoffs. I certainly still wouldn't want to bet on it. Again, I know the Jets looked good tonight in the standalone game. There's going to be tons of talk about it. Aaron Rodgers was very happy tonight, had tons of positive energy. He connected with both Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams for a touchdown. Garrett Wilson had one of the best touchdown catches that you may have ever seen. Pretty crazy that it happened in MetLife Stadium. That stadium gets a lot of bad rap for things like the field, but certainly two of the most iconic catches there now. One for the Jets, one for the Giants. In Garrett Wilson's tonight, and the catch years ago for OBJ with the Giants. Plenty of good things to look at for this Jets game. Plenty of things for New York fans to feel positive about. So again, I don't necessarily want to come off as a hater. New York fans, you're more than welcome to call me a hater if you want to, but I personally wouldn't place money on the Jets making the playoffs. But again, what do I know? I placed money against the Jets winning tonight, and they won their third game of the season after losing so many and looking horrible all season. This is one of the 3 nights so far this year that they've decided to win, and that's their second win, by the way. 2 of their 3 wins have come on Thursday night, and unfortunately for you, New York, that was your final Thursday night game. On the schedule currently, the Jets only have one more primetime game coming up. That's in 2 weeks against the Colts. We'll have to see if that stays a primetime game. I'm still not sure. I mean, after the Jets winning that tonight, and certainly if the Colts look good with Joe Flacco this Sunday, I think if that ends up being the case, Sunday Night Football will keep Colts Jets. But if the Colts look really bad, for example, and certainly if the Jets had looked bad tonight, I think it would have been not too much of a surprise if that game got flexed out of Sunday night. In that case, tonight would have been the Jets' final primetime game of the season. But being that they won, I do think that that Sunday night game in a couple weeks does stay Colts Jets. We'll have to see. I don't know. I'm still not too excited about that as a Sunday night game, but yeah. So at least as far as Thursday nights, the Jets have won two of. Unfortunately, you don't have any more of those left on your schedule. So sorry, there, Jets fans. You're gonna have to finally get some. Jets are gonna finally have to get you some wins on Sunday because that's all you're playing the rest of the season. Again, maybe one Sunday night, but yeah. So good win for the Jets. For the Texans, heartbreaking loss, but again, it was one that, I mean, a lot of us expected that the Texans should win and that they should have been favored. Obviously, the sports books, surprise, surprise, sports books had it right. They know what they're doing. But for the Texans, one positive note is that at least as far as reporting has gone, Nico Collins is expected to return next week. So, and again, you got 10 days before you got to play again if you're the Texans. So maybe for the Texans, you're able to get Nico Collins back, and things can, get better again from there. For the Texans, your next game is going to be tough in 10 days. It'll be against the Lions, so that'll be a tough one. After that game, though, for the Texans, it gets a little bit more manageable for a few weeks. Texans also have one of the latest buys of the season in Week 14. That is the last week that includes buys for any team. So the Texans are getting a pretty late bye week, so you'll still have that to get players rested up for the very final stretch of a few weeks. But yeah, good win for the Jets. Congratulations to New York fans on that. The Jets dressed up as a good team for you for Halloween. And again, sorry for that one, but you're gonna hear that. You're gonna hear that a lot. That joke a lot this next day or two in sports talk. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like rating on the video. It really helps. Please hit subscribe if you don't. If you want to see more videos like this of me talking NFL, whatever team it is, hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of those videos. YouTube likes to mess with that sometimes if you don't hit the notification bell. And comment down below, what did you think of this Thursday night game? How was your Halloween? Did you dress up as anything? Are you into that kind of thing? Let me know all that down below, and I will see you in the next video.